demonstrates a big reticence on the part of some people to accept the fact that journalism is broadening very rapidly. It's like a bunch of people going, good Lord, they're doing it by themselves. Science journalism isn't a job title, it's about values that are shared about things like accuracy, truth, objectivity, scrutiny, the values that science itself shares. And if you take those values as part of what journalism is about, then you see that these sort of boundaries set up by different channels don't really matter. There's a lot of great journalism going on in mainstream media, there's a lot of bad science journalism as well. Same can be said for more amateur reports like blogging. And the metaphor that I quite like is that we're entering a sort of Cambrian explosion of science journalism, where you're getting a massive radiation in the number of people, diversity of people who are taking on this craft and making it part of their lives. And from my point of view, 5 years ago, I could not be doing what I'm doing now. I couldn't be blogging, doing freelance writing, talking to a room of really interesting people. I started blogging because I wasn't getting any traction in getting pictures accepted to mainstream publications, so I thought, screw it, I'm just going to do it myself. And freelancing sort of followed on from that. So my career was based on doors that were open to me through the internet. And I think the internet has changed this ecosystem that we find ourselves in and the challenges that journalists working in science face today. Mainly because the tools of production are now widely available to anyone. Anyone who wants to talk about science can do so to wide audiences. Now, I've got a blog post on my blog where I talk about some of the threats and opportunities that this ecosystem faces, and I don't really have time to go into them today. But what I do want to say is that I think adapting to this new environment involves blending qualities of all different types of media. Channel is irrelevant, it's really content that matters, and about getting good science out to people that's interesting and that's understandable to them. And the key change to me is that we've kind of got this wide pool of experts, people who not only have the tools to talk about science, the desire to do it, they've got the skills to do it well, and the knowledge to do it really accurately. And these people aren't interlopers. You lot, I don't fall into that category. You're tomorrow's journalists, whether you see it as journalism or not. And what I'd love to see is people from sort of more amateur backgrounds getting into mainstream publications, because let's face it, they have much wider audiences. You also get experiences with editors, which is a fantastic way of boosting your writing skills in a way that blogging and getting feedback from commenters simply can't do. And I'd love to see more mainstream outlets take advantage of this massive influx of talent. I see this happening already. I wrote a blog piece on the psychology of suicide bombing, which was picked up by The Guardian and essentially just edited slightly, put up on their website, and I got some money for it. More recently, I saw a nice interesting case study from Matthew Harper at Forbes, who wrote a piece on Forbes' blog about the Y chromosome paper that came out in Nature earlier this week, which you may or may not have seen. Essentially, he just did a very short 5-piece story, facts, 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 clearly read the paper, and then links to my post and John Hawkes' anthropology post. And that's a really nice case study for me, because it's just, I've read the paper, here's all I have to say about it, short deadlines, but here's a way of finding out more from people who've had more to say about it and gone into a bit more detail. So, just to finish off from my point of view, one thing that really struck me last night was talking to a lot of people in this audience and finding out that people have a vast array of different experiences that include journalism in various forms. You blog, you tweet, you write books, you write, you broadcast, you podcast, you do radio, you edit, you commission, some of you teach, some of you, shock horror, do science. And this blend of specialist knowledge and generalist experience is what I think we're moving towards in the future. And the internet has changed things a lot, and I think it's up to us to work out how best to adapt to it. That's it for me. We'll go down the road this way.
If we're standing up, I'm going to right over here, so I'm not So I'm John Timmer from Ars Technica, and thinking about what I wanted to say here, one of the obvious things is we're here because we value science, we think it's important, and we think it's important to convey that to the public. So if we're talking about rebooting science journalism and what we want as the existing science journalism translates to new media, we need to think about what we have to preserve from the existing system that's working well. And for me, one of the important things about places like The Atlantic and the New York Times is that you reach people who don't really know that they're interested in science. They don't buy the Times or The Atlantic to read about science, but because these outlets cover the area, you get people who aren't searching for science information getting good material. And I think that's a really important aspect of journalism that we need to preserve. So how do you get that in the online community where sites like science blogs or the discovery blogs are for people who are already know they want to read about science? Ars Technica is, I'm not holding this up as a shining example, it's the one I've got experience with. Ours is a technology site, as any of you who read it know. We do have a dedicated science audience, but most of the people who come there to read are there to read about the latest Apple operating system with the latest hardware developments from Intel. So it does have a small science audience, but it's a large percentage of people like IT professionals, gadget enthusiasts, online gamers, things like that come to it. And so we have the opportunity to expose them to science through what we do there. And what we do there is sort of a hybrid of science blogging and traditional journalism. So as Ed pointed out, an editor can help clean up what's a blog post and get it fit for wider consumption. And what I do there is a bit like running a lab in that I try to identify interesting stories. We have a series of graduate students and postdocs who freelance for us. I give them ideas, they ignore me, and write about what's interesting them. And then I get the material back, we edit it. After I'm through with it, it goes through a copy editor, it goes online, and it gets read really widely. If you, all measures of online traffic are flawed in one way or another, but if you look at some of the sites that register traffic and compare ours to everything at nature.com, we get more page views a month than they do. So. You produce a lot more stuff than we do. Nature has a far more specialized audience than we do, but I think reaching a generalized audience is important. So the good aspects of that is that we have a consistent voice, consistent style, and we give graduate students and postdocs who are thinking about experimenting with writing a chance to, as Ed said, have an editor hopefully improve their writing and give them an audience they wouldn't get if they just started their own blog on Google or something. What we get from the public is exposure from or for the public is exposure of people who aren't necessarily comfortable with science. We have a lot of people in the tech community that don't believe climate change is real. We have, as people who follow the area know, the engineering community, which reads us heavily, has a major creationism issue. And so we're reaching an audience that might otherwise avoid dealing with science. There are downsides. We will never have the sort of resources to devote to science that The Atlantic or the New York Times does. We just don't have the budget. It's not the main focus of the site. So we're not going to be sending somebody to interview Arctic researchers in the field or things like that. And so it's, we need to preserve those aspects of it, but it's one thing that seems to be working. Have my own time. Okay, I'll wrap up.
Hi, I'm David Dobbs, and I write mainly longer stuff. I do write some shorter pieces for Slate and places like that, but the thing I like to do the most and the most engages me are longer magazine pieces and books. So magazine uses 4,000 to 8,000 words, that sort of thing.